welcome back to the Me, Myself and Hopefully You podcast. My name is Tarek, a 19-year-old university student currently experiencing a midlife crisis. Why, you might ask? Because I have no idea what I want to do with my life. So rather than see a career advisor, I decided to start a podcast where I interview guests from an array of backgrounds and hear more about them. And hopefully, by hearing about their stories, I can help create my own too. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest at this time is a hilarious actor known for his roles on Bad Education and on the Netflix series Afterlife. We discuss his path into acting, how 5 minutes with Jack Whitehall got him his first major role on Bad Education, working with Ricky Gervais on what he's really like on set, unfortunate fan or civilian, as he likes to call them, interactions, working as a pizza delivery man in the middle of what seemed like the up and coming of his career, and so much more. It was definitely one of, if not my favourite podcast episode, so I do hope you enjoy it as much as I did. It is none other than the hilarious Mr. Ethan Lawrence.
So, Ethan, I want to start off with some quick fire questions just to get to know you a bit better.
Sure.
The first quick fire question to you is, who would you consider as a role model in your life?
Well, that's interesting you ask. So the guy who sort of like the person that I watched when it sort of came to getting into comedy, I was introduced quite young to The Young Ones, the sitcom. And from then Blackadder and Bottom. So honestly, role model in terms of sort of comedy wise would be Rick Mail. The best to ever do it. So yeah, that's where I kind of got my inspiration, thinking like, yeah, being funny is good. Like this is something that I could do. So yeah, I suppose biggest inspiration would be Rick Mail.
What do you think makes a sort of this is going off topic, but what do you think makes, I know it's easy answer is they make them laugh, but what do you think makes a good comedian? What do you think makes a great comedian from a good comedian?
Interesting. Empathy, I think.
Okay.
I think that like good comedy rises from being able to share your whole self, and that whole self being reflected back to you from the audience. So like, something could be funny on its own, but something that's really funny touches something that's kind of human, that we can all recognize within ourselves. And I think the best comedians are the ones who are able to like tell a story to you and make you feel like it's happening to you. Like Billy Connolly is fantastic at this. And he's, there's a reason why he's widely considered the best of all time. But yeah, I think that generally is where that would come from. That it needs to be, comedy has to be empathetic in order to be truly, truly funny, I think.
Okay, that's interesting. We'll get more into comedy later on, hopefully. My
Sure.
my next quick fire question to you is, what's the last thing that's on your camera roll?
Good question.
I hope it's not dodgy, but if it is, feel free to share.
The last thing that's on my camera roll is the TikTok that I made just before we hopped on.
Oh,
the Zoom.
right, okay.
So yeah,
yeah.
I'm going to publish that as soon as we're done here. So yeah, it's a 14-second video of me answering the question, "How are you?"
Well, how are you?
I'm all right,
Yeah.
Not to spoil the TikTok or anything.
I mean, that's a major spoiler right there. Ethan Lawrence spoiler.
Well, this isn't going out live, is it?
No, it's not.
Oh,
don't worry.
Gosh.
Don't worry. It's all right. Honestly, it's all right. Don't worry.
That's all right. So we're not spoiling that because that's going out after this. So we're fine.
Imagine
Don't worry.
the scenes. You'd have all the directors on at you. They'd be going crazy. You'd never get hired again.
I'd never work in this. I'd never work in this town.
Your face you'd be blacklisted from acting, in my opinion.
Ethan Lawrence and his loose lips.
Exactly. That's what they'll be calling it. It'll be I can see the headlines in the Daily Mirror, right? Lawrence's loose lips.
Like the Daily Mirror would care. Page
I mean, the Daily Mirror care
best.
about a lot of stupid things, to be fair. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
Fair enough.
My final quick fire question to you is, if there was a house fire and everyone made it out alive, but you could only keep one thing, what would that one thing be? Now, you can have your phone and your laptop because everyone says phone and laptop. Even though your laptop's a bit dodgy right now, you can have your phone and laptop.
Oh, my phone will be in my pocket, so that's fine. To be honest, we can let the laptop burn. I don't care about it. I have a box. It's not a huge box, sort of like like about the size of, I don't know,
a box.
Yeah, it's about 1/2 foot deep and about 2 feet long. And in that box are like master scripts, sides, all kinds of things that I've either done for TV, stuff from like when I was doing like what when I was acting before TV. Just it's kind of a memory box, but all tied to sort of like my career. And it's all stashed, I think, in 1 or 2 boxes, which are pretty easy to get to. So I reckon if everything's on fire, I'd nab those because those are absolutely priceless.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because right there on my memory boxes, all of them, there's 3 of them right there. They're all there.
It's easy to grab as well. Just got to stand up and nab.
Yeah, and they're all like split into. So one's primary school, one's high school, and then one's sixth form. Sixth form's the smallest because it was only 2 years. Yeah. No, I like the idea of things like of memory boxes because the best thing is when you're at that, when say you've just completed, like you feel like you've completed a part of your life, and then you go back and you open one of those boxes, the best feeling ever.
It really is. Like, I mean, I'm sure we'll probably get into this when we start talking about my history and stuff like that. But quite recently, the guy who basically taught me to act when I was doing amateur musical theatre in my teens passed away recently, and I went through some old programs of some of the shows that I did for him, and again it was sad in one ways but nostalgic in other ways, like looking at like, wow, this is like, I learned a lot from this guy. Look how many credits I've got here. Like there's something about memory, there's something about tapping into memory, especially when it's like, I mean, the last time I did a show with him I would have been 17, so that would have been 11, nearly 12 years ago. So that's a long old time to sort of be separated from that in terms of history. So yeah, there's something about memories, like, things can be replaced. Like, I'm looking around my room now, like I can get another TV, I can get another PlayStation or whatever, but like that old stuff, that you got to protect it because there's no copies. Those are the only copies I have.
Is it a PlayStation 5 though?
No, it's a PlayStation 4. I'm not buying a new console until it's got some good games on it.
Same. That's what I'm waiting for as well. I'm waiting for GTA 6. When GTA 6 comes out, then I'll buy a PlayStation 5. That's the only game I'm waiting for.
Oh, okay. Well, good luck buying a PS5 in 2036. Then.
Yeah, I know. But I'm just like, I'm not going to give in. I'm not buying one until GTA 6 comes out. There's no other game that I want to play. That's the only game I want to play.
That's
God
it. They need a killer app for me.
Yeah, they do. Because it's not worth the money you're spending on it if it's like there's just barely any good games on it. I just don't see the point.
I don't understand like sorry, go on.
No, all I said was I just don't see the point of spending so much on it if there's no really solid good games.
Well, no, that's it. Like, consoles should be sold in service of the games that are on it, not the other way around. I've never understood the console war mentality in that regard.
Yeah.
Because like the best console was the one that has the best games on it. Like, I don't care about your teraflops and your SSDs.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
If you've got a good game, that's great.
Well, that's why I've always preferred PlayStation, because the PlayStation exclusive. I know we're getting completely off topic, but the PlayStation exclusives are mental. Games like Uncharted, Last of Us, they're crazy good games. And I know Xbox have got like Halo and things like that, but I just go, the PlayStation exclusives for me are better games, so I buy the PlayStation.
For sure, same here. I mean, the console before that I had an Xbox 360, and that was specifically because I wanted to play Dead Rising. If you remember that.
Yeah.
So it's I chase the games, not the console, and like maybe one day, I mean, it'll probably be a year, maybe 2 years into this generation's lifespan that I'll be looking at the games and going, right, now's the time to take a plunge.
Fair enough. Do you game a lot?
I'm a big old gamer, man. That's me.
Oh yeah. What game are you playing now?
Right now, I'm going through Nier Replicant.
I don't think I've heard of that.
It's a remake of a PS3 game from 2010. It's by Square Enix. It's sort of a Japanese RPG thing. I've been really enjoying it. It's I've never played a game in that series before. I think there's another one called Nier Automata or something like that. But yeah, I've been really enjoying it. I would recommend it if you have a level of patience for fetch quests.
Well, fair enough.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah. Fair enough.
No, I've been enjoying it.
Okay, fair dues. My final question. Actually, wait, have I asked them all? Yeah, I've asked you all my quick fire questions. I thought I didn't ask you one then.
That's right. I thought if you had another one, I was ready for it.
So before we sort of get onto the interview and get onto sort of school and your history, could you sort of introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure, no problem. I'm Ethan Lawrence. I've been a professional actor for nearly 10 years. That's been kind of my thing. I made a start in a BBC Three sitcom called Bad Education. I fell into that ass backwards. It was all good luck, which I'm sure we'll get to. And from there, I've just been sort of riding the wave as much as one can, as like a jobbing mercenary for hire in British comedy. So yeah, 10 years of that in February. And what I think is particularly interesting as well, with regards to the concept of your podcast, is that I was your age when I started.
Oh, were you? What, 19?
Yeah.
When you started Bad Education?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
And as I was looking into it, I was like, "Ooh, there's a parallel."
Exactly. It's that full circle now. If you don't mind, so what? So you're 29 now, are you?
I'm 29 in September.
Yeah, you've aged well. I would have said 24, 25.
That's the beauty of having a baby face. I
guess, yeah.
I can conceivably play in my 20s.
I look like I'm about 30, but I've had 35 before. It's
ouch.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't the best. I've had people think that me and my dad are brothers, and he loves it. He has this smirk. Says it.
I'm sure he's thrilled.
Yeah, I'm also, when we go to restaurants, I'm the one who speaks more. So that also makes it even worse. And they're like, "Oh, your brother," or something like that. I'm like, "No, he's not my brother. He's my dad." They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's my dad." And then he gets so happy, and I'm just there like, "Oh, whatever."
No, I still get ID'd.
Yeah,
half the time. Yeah, especially when I've not got a beard, because I'm bearded at the minute. But when it's shaved down for work, like I could easily pass for under 18.
Yeah, I work for Morrison's, and at Morrison's, when we're on the checkout, we've got to ID anyone that looks under 25. I would definitely ID you.
For sure, you would be right to.
I would. It's annoying when they have people, when customers start crying about it. Well, I'm like, I've got to do my job. You know how much you can get fined so much if we get caught not IDing someone that should be ID'd. You get in trouble so much. Yeah, like thousands of pounds, and then customers have a go at you, and it's just like, I'm not risking getting fined thousands of pounds for.
No, absolutely not. Like, do it.
If I could, I would fine I would fine everyone. I would ID everyone. I genuinely would ID it, because I'd be like, I just don't want to risk it. I don't want to get fined thousands of pounds. It's just not worth it. And then you get customers. But anyway, I'm talking about myself too much. We're here to talk about you.
That's good. It's a flow. We're bonding.
Yeah, we're like warming up here. Yeah. We're warming up, and then boom, it crashes. Watch. Anyway, so let's talk about you. Let's talk about school then. Before the whole bad education, before acting, what was your sort of school experience like?
Pretty good. I was a pretty smart kid. I think these days we're allowed to say that. I think what helped is that my mum was a great reader, so I grew up around books a lot. So like going into school, like, I already had pretty good reading comprehension, and that's like especially early days in school, that's like 50% of the journey right there. So it was a bit of a swap. I didn't really discover any kind of sort of performance gene until I got into secondary school. And I think that's largely because of the reading comprehension thing. I was, when it came to sort of like your nativities and your school plays and stuff like that, I was nature's narrator. I stood there in front of the little, where they put the songbook stand with the script, doing my best enunciation.
Yeah, I was the exact same. I was the narrator as well. And then, again, I'm sorry I'm interrupting. I was the narrator in year 5, and then in year 6, I was the main character. I was King Arthur.
Hell yeah. That did not happen for me. I went narrator all the way through.
You could say that we've had similar acting careers. In
many ways.
Arthur, you got to work with Ricky Gervais. Like, it's pretty much the same thing.
But my professional acting debut came when I was your age, so you
never know.
There's still time.
Exactly.
But yeah, so secondary school was when I basically found the sort of the acting and performance bug, largely because that was the first time that drama was actually part of the curriculum. And turns out I really liked it, and they had an after-school club. The first sort of major show that I played a character in, they were doing sort of like some kind of bastardized version of Snow White featuring mad scientists and all sorts of stuff like that. And I played the scientist, which is it was exhilarating. And like there was a scene at the end where I had to, like, the poison apple had like changed hands all over the place, and I had come into possession of it and take a bite and had to just die on stage. And not really knowing what I was doing, I just hammed it up to the nth degree, like, you know, choking, pleading, all of that, jumping around, like, and then collapsing. And I got a huge laugh for it. And it's sort of almost a cliche when comedians talk about this, but like, you know, getting that laugh, you feel it for the first time and you're like, I've got this room in the palm of my hands. Like, I am invincible. I'm a monster truck that walks like a man.
Yeah, exactly.
It was amazing. And then from then on, I was like, right, okay, so this is something, this is viable. This is something that I can do. So not long after that, I joined sort of an after school club, kind of sort of like a stage school thing called Stageability, which is where I met Gary Sullivan, who I mentioned earlier in the thing. And like I learned to act there. They also had a thing called Essex Group. I grew up in Essex, I should say, where it was kind of like a amateur musical theatre company. And from pretty much age 13 through to age 17, I'd be doing the performing arts stuff on one evening. I'd be doing a show on one evening and 2 other shows across the weekend. So like I completely involved myself in acting and performing to the exclusion of basically everything else. I've always kind of been that way. I'm an all or nothing kind of guy.
Yeah.
So I pinned my horse to this wagon. And like, you know, I was in a number of shows that I was really pleased with. Like, you know, I did a load of musical theatre. We took one of our shows, we actually took to the Waterford Festival in Ireland, which was fantastic. I'd never been to Ireland before. Got to play like loads of Chekhov and Moliere, like just basically just learning my craft. And I think what I learned from Gary probably most of all is that, yeah, craft is part of it, but also it's graft. Like, it's hard work. Like, if you're finding being an actor easy, you're probably not doing it right. And people aren't looking at you with the sort of level of respect that you could potentially be earning, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, that was basically, I was doing that concurrently with secondary school, where again, I was a good student. Like, you know, I just got my head down. I had good time management, so I was able to get through with decent grades and with like loads of credits under my belt before the age of 18.
Yeah, no. So before the age of 18, you had several so by credits, do you mean sort of like roles? Is that what you?
Yeah. So like this was, I mean, these were all amateur, I should stress, but like, you know, we were putting on sellout shows in like decent sized theatres. Like, you know, there's not a provincial theatre in Essex that I haven't trod the boards on, I don't think. And it was all good, like practical learning experience, because again, I'd probably, as we'll get onto, I'm not actually like professionally trained. You know, I never went to drama school.
Oh, okay.
So like everything I know from experience. Like, you know, I know how to work a crowd and stagecraft because I spent a lot of time on stage. I learned how to act for camera by acting in front of camera, which is probably the best way, really. I mean, I would say that because
oh yeah, exactly. The best way is to do it the way I did it. That's
yes,
the best
look
way.
how successful and brilliant and talented and handsome I am.
And do the same thing, because that's the only way for you to do it.
Of course.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's like with what everyone says these days, is getting experience is the most important thing. And again, it's not to dismiss people that do go to drama school or that have gone that route. Even with anything that go through the academic route rather than the experience route, at the end of the day, we're all on our own journey. My previous the previous act that I had on, Callum, he went to drama school. You've not gone to drama school, like, but you've also.
The thing is, though, drama school is experience. It's just a different kind of experience, because, like, you know, with drama school, they train you up to be sort of like, you know, perfect qualified actors ready to take anything on. And like, you know, the vast bulk of people I've worked with at least have some kind of formal training. Like, I'm an exception that proves the rule, really, because it doesn't, you know, drama school doesn't just teach you like the actual skill and craft of acting. It also, like, you know, gives you connections. It can set you up with an agent. It can put you in front of people that know how to use you. And so, you know, it's all different, but it is all experience.
So how did you, how did you get to that point of, you know, I'm assuming you have an agent now.
Yeah.
You have an agent. You had some incredible credits, Bad Education, Afterlife, and all these other credits that you have. Yes, they were amateur, but between the ages of 13 and 18, you were getting all this experience. Something that a lot of, are you still there? So yeah, as I was saying, like you've got all this, abundance of experience. You've done quite a lot, and then you're a successful actor as well without the drama school background. How did you sort of find that? Did you feel like at any point did you feel like, oh, I should have gone to drama school? And what advice would you give to someone that maybe couldn't or didn't get into drama school or hasn't gone to drama school and is going through the route that you went on?
Well, it's kind of an interesting question because I being sort of like front facing with acting and stuff, like I get asked for advice a lot, and it's difficult because the thing I always say is that I can't really give advice so much as I can give anecdote, because my route into the industry was not normal. So I mean, the best thing to do would be to cut to where I was when I was 18. So I packed up Essex Group, I've got my grades, and I think to myself, right, time to apply for drama school. So I apply, I audition, I don't get anywhere, but I've got 2 universities on my backup where I can study drama. And in this case, I ended up going to Royal Holloway University of London in Surrey to study drama and creative writing. There was no plan. Like, I wasn't, I figured, right, get a degree in something that I'm interested in, and presumably then the work will come. Thanks to Essex Group, I had a sort of they kind of had like an agency, almost like a cottage industry, where I'd get sent up for the occasional thing, but it was nothing like too major. That was until the second term of my first year at university, where I get an email through from Anne, who is the lady who was in charge of it all, and said, okay, Tiger Aspects want to meet you for a BBC Three project. And I'm like, sure, because again, prior to this, it had been like, I went up for a couple of things sort of floating around that, but nothing too serious. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go in. I'm not far from London. So I nip in and like do a read, and everything's cool. Go back, I get a call a couple of days later, and they're like, they want to see you again, but this time they want you to meet the guy who wrote it, Jack Whitehall. And I'm like, okay, I know who that is.
Oh wow.
Like, it was sort of delivered sort of like, oh yeah, this up and coming you mightn't have heard of. And it's like, no, I know who Jack Whitehall is.
Yeah.
Okay. So I go back in, and at this point, like, I should stress as well, like, I've got long hair, big old straggly beard, because I was going through my rebellious university phase and decided that I was going to be hideous. That was my that was my thing. I was going to be a dirty little hobo man. I rock up to the audition.
Little hobo man. I just went in to meet Jack Whitehall as a dirty little hobo man, and literally, he basically said that is perfect.
Literally January, February time. So I was in my big old coat. I had my long hair, I had my straggly beard, looked an absolute state, had no discipline at all. Like, thinking, oh, this could be a potentially life-changing thing. But then I wasn't thinking about it in those terms, because, like, I was still in the middle of training. I was still in the middle of university. So I was like, well, obviously this isn't going to actually happen. Like, so perhaps I should have taken it more seriously at the time, but then who knows? So I rock up, and I do a chemistry read with Jack, and like the producer Ben Cavey's there, producer Pippa's there, and we're like, okay, that felt all right. So I go back to university, and I'm like, I feel a bit kind of poor, okay. And then a day later, I get the call, and they're like, you've got the job. And I was like, really? Like, there must be some kind of mistake, surely. No.
They wanted Lawrence Ethan, not Ethan Lawrence.
Yeah, it was all a clerical error. Yeah. My entire career is it's a clerical error.
This whole time, everyone just thinks you're Lawrence Ethan, not Ethan Lawrence.
It wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, 2 weeks later, I was on my first ever professional television shoot, wondering like how this had happened. Like I was, I was just, and yeah, and it. Looking back on it now, like, there's sort of you have a sort of tendency or an instinct to sort of place a kind of sort of manifest destiny on the idea of it all. Because my alternative university was Bath Spa, which would have put me way outside the reach of London on the budget that I had.
Yeah.
So I probably wouldn't have gone to the audition. And if I hadn't have gone to the audition, I wouldn't have got the job. And then
who knows?
And like if I'd gone to drama school, I'm not sure how comfortable they are with you taking auditions while you're still training there. So I may not have been able to do that. So weirdly enough, I sort of ended up in the right. I mean, I'm not a person who believes in fate or coincidence or anything like that, but I do sometimes look back on that and I was like, I couldn't have played that better if I tried, and I wasn't trying. So what was going on there?
Yeah, no, it is pretty crazy that, like, how it's like it all sort of fell into place almost. Like the fact that, you know, potentially in drama school they wouldn't have let you have taken that audition. If you were in Bath, whatever you want to call it, they wouldn't have let you take that audition, or you wouldn't have been able to have gone to that audition. It's because you took this sort of route. You ended up meeting Jack Whitehall. Also, you had chemistry with Jack Whitehall. It could have very well be possible that you didn't have anything with him, and
For sure,
it wouldn't have worked out.
I mean, that was the thing. Like, it's not usual that like you would have an audition and then like 2 weeks later you're on set. Like, they were really worried that they weren't going to have someone to play Joe.
Oh, okay.
And so I was a last ditch effort. Like, I don't know what if they didn't find the chemistry or they didn't find the right thing, but like every single other cast member was in place. I was the last piece of the puzzle, and like I'd sort of come out of nowhere, and here we go. And yeah, so that was crazy. But and like, you know, I finished it, I made it, and then sort of at the end of that, it was like, right, well that was fun. Now back to my studies. You know, I didn't. I've lost you.
No, I thought I lost you then for a second after you said that. It's crazy technology, the beauty of technology, like I said a million times. I want to ask you about that sort of that Jack Whitehall moment. Obviously, Jack Whitehall, I mean, even now he's still massive. Back then he was massive as well. And you've just been told they want you to do a reading with Jack Whitehall. How are you preparing for that? And are you going into that thinking, I need to go in, say hello to Jack, maybe have a quick conversation so that I start a bit of chemistry, and then when we're reading, it's a better chemistry? Or are you not allowed to do that? How is that whole process like? What is that whole process like?
I mean, back then, like obviously things have changed now with the situation that we have with the pandemic. Like in-person auditions aren't really a thing anymore. But back then, I mean, again, I was unprepared and untrained. I didn't really know what I was going in for. All I knew is that I had this script, so I learned it. Like, you know, that's just good practice. Any actors out there, people don't look kindly on you not being off book. Just be off book. Like, just learn your lines. You'll find it a lot easier. You can do a lot better work. But I was off book, and I went in, and like again, it wasn't that it was rushed. I just sort of think it was. I think there were a few people sort of vying for the thing, so it was kind of come in, like, you know, hey, how's it going? We sit down, and like there wasn't really any time for it. Like they were on a time frame, so it was sit down, just do the scene, and then go. A lot of auditions feel quick like that, and it's consistent across the board. I mean, I've done hundreds, thousands of auditions now, and like it's all pretty much like that. Like you'll go in and it'll be like you've got 5 minutes to, like, you know, do your thing, and in that you've got to not only do the scene but also, like, you know, be good in the room and say hi and shake everyone's hand and rah 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 rah. And that's essentially what that was. I mean, in terms of preparation, like I said, I wasn't really thinking about it in terms of something that this was actually going to happen, I suppose. I mean, it's weird looking back on it. I haven't actually thought about it in a long time, but it was a very silly thing to turn up having not, like, you know, done something to make myself look like a schoolboy.
Yeah,
instead of it was very stupid, and I certainly wouldn't do it again. But yeah, it was odd, and like it was weird. Like Jack was probably the first, like, you know, celebrity that I did air quotes for everyone, by the way, because, you know, it's that at the time it was, you know, he was up and comer, like, you know, he'd done Live at the Apollo and everyone recognized him as a great stand-up, but certainly not the Hollywood dominating Disney prince that he is now.
Hollywood dominating Disney prince. I'm sure he'd love to be called that.
Well, he has been just now by me.
Ethan Lawrence exclusive right there. Again. You still there? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I've got you. You're back.
The thing is, I can still hear you. You just can't hear me. I mean, you freeze, but I can hear you. Like I heard you typing away. Anyway,
Ugh.
yeah, I don't know why it's me like this, but and I do apologize for it as well.
It's no problem, mate.
Everyone that's watching.
I've had these sorts of problems. Hang on, I'm just going to shut a curtain because that's all. There we go.
Yeah, no. So I can't even remember what we were talking about. Oh yeah, about working with Jack. So that because you said there it's quite quick, right? Everything's quite quick. Is that really frustrating as an actor? Because my assumption is when you're an actor, obviously you're working with other people, but you need to actually know them as well before you work on a show. You need to actually get into motion, I guess, warm up a little with them beforehand. Is it frustrating that you've only got 5 minutes? You've literally got to give your all in those 5 minutes, and you've got to show everything you can in those 5 minutes, and then it's all or nothing at that point. Is that quite annoying? Or do you get used to it?
You get used to it. I mean, because it's always been thus. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know any different in terms of sort of in-person auditions. Obviously, things are a lot different now. We don't have the in-person auditions, and Zoom auditions are rare. So what happens now is that we do what's called self-tapes, where I would set up basically how I'm appearing in this screen now and deliver it to either to camera or just off camera with no feedback from the director or no feedback from a producer. So that's even more sort of dehumanizing in a way. I feel desperately sorry actually for actors just starting out, like where this is like the only thing that they know. Because I pride myself on being good in a room. Like, you learn how to do that quick, especially with when in-person things are a thing. Because you're thinking to yourself, again, like you've got the 5 minutes. So instead of thinking it as a limitation, you need to think of it in terms of, right, I need to turbocharge every aspect of what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly.
So that I'm absolutely myself and I look like I'm a good team player. This is why it's good to learn your lines before you go in as well. Like I've seen people walk in with holding their script. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it's mental. Like, but yeah, it's all sorts of different things. But yeah, in terms of sort of, you get used to it so fast. I mean, even now we're sort of in the new normal times, and I barely think about how sort of, how much you have to put into a self tape, because now that casting directors are sort of separated from us by 1 degree, like actors have had to become cameramen. Yeah. And in terms of like voiceover artists, which I do voiceover as well, I've had to learn how to become an audio engineer. And these are all good skills, don't get me wrong. It's just stuff that like we didn't have before that we've had to learn how to get good at in order to stand out in a crowded field.
It's like it's the entire world now, though. Like, say if you apply for a job, you need to know how to do social media now. All of a sudden,
for sure,
you need to know how to do this, that, and the other. Even as an actor, you're a sports person. You need to know how to do social media now. You have to be on social media. There's no big sport. There's no up and comer or big sort of public figure that's not on social media now. You have to be on social media. You have to make your life somewhat public now.
The only comedy performer that I can think of that's sort of this generation that has completely gotten rid of social media is James Acaster.
Oh yeah,
but he was on it. Like as he was on the up and up, he was on it and built an audience that way.
Well, he's built an audience, but he is now well known. So I guess when you're at that point, you don't really need to. Obviously, it helps,
for sure,
but you don't need to. But if you're an up and coming actor and you're your first few roles, I feel like you do need to. And especially if you're starting to establish yourself in anything, not just as acting, in anything, you need to have social media now. You need to show that you've got something about you, that you're brandable, or whatever the word is. And
it's absolutely the case. Like I mean, I'm a fan of it in a way, like because time was where celebrities were sort of viewed as this kind of sort of almost mythic, godlike creatures.
Yeah.
Moving around in universes that we couldn't possibly understand. But like now, it's like they've got a Twitter now. We can see their humanity, which I think is better. In some cases, it's better. In some cases, some celebrities I think need to shut the fuck up. But
exactly, yeah, exactly. Who was that a dig at? Who was that a dig at?
Oh, it could be a lot of people, couldn't it?
I'll never tell. Ethan. You want to. Go on. Give us a...
All right, okay. I will give the big example. The big example, because it's the one that it was such a nexus point of celebrity, please be quiet. And it was Gal Gadot and all her celebrity friends singing Imagine right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Oh, that was
I'm not sure if everyone remembers that. Go back and look it up if you haven't.
Everyone must remember that.
Cringe-inducing.
It was.
It's like all these celebrities and like their big palatial manners being like, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And it's like, you don't get it, man.
Because they got inspired because they saw like Italians singing, like normal Italians outside their thingy, you know, when they were quarantining, right at the beginning. And I think they were like, oh, you know what, we'll do it. And it was just awful. It was just like, what are you? Who looked at that and said, you know what, this is a good idea. Let's do this. This isn't patronizing at all. We'll just sing along and say that everything's going to be okay. I remember that. That's a good shout. That.
But in a way, it did in a way humanize them because it also showed that like they're capable of making mistakes.
Yeah.
Like, you know, normally there's, especially around really high profile A-listers like that, there's a PR team sort of ready to go into disaster mode whenever something like that happens. And so it was kind of fascinating to see sort of like the peek behind the curtain as we realized, do you know what? We're all going crazy in quarantine. We're all losing our minds.
I guess that's what the pandemic has done though. Like it's affected everyone so much, you know, anyone can die, anyone can get it. And it's just sort of hit that realization of, oh, wait, actually, you know, we are all the same. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, whatever. We can all get this disease and we can all, you know, suffer from it immensely, from death to just getting ill or to not suffer at all, get no causes. It's a weird disease. And I think the pandemic, in a way, it hasn't been good, obviously, but in a way, it has definitely taught us lessons that we hadn't yet learned yet, or we'd forgotten almost.
I would agree. I mean, you know, not to woe is me about it, but like obviously the arts were hit really hard by this. Still are being hit hard. Because like in terms of TV and film, we were out for 9 months.
Wow.
Which is a long time, like to not be making anything. And like now everything's sort of in catch-up mode. Like, which is great for like people who are like established and ready to go, because there's parts of plenty. Like weirdly enough, 2021 has been one of the busiest years of my career, despite the pandemic. But like theatre is still struggling, like, and it will continue to struggle until like we can work out some kind of system whereby if someone gets pinged, they don't have to shut the whole show down.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, what I'm seeing, and it's frightening. But you know, I suppose if it taught us anything, like especially in the arts, is that this is all. I mean, a lot of us knew this anyway, but this is all so very fragile and can like disappear in an instant. Like, you know, I'm sure as we get onto more career stuff, I will tell you about my years in the pizza delivery wilderness. That'll be a
pizza delivery wilderness.
Oh yes.
Oh, okay.
2018 through 2019 was not a good year for you, boy.
Right. Well, that's what we're gonna have to ask about then. What is this pizza delivery wilderness that you mentioned here?
Right. So I don't know if we're going to jump around. So what I will say is, bad education took me all the way through uni. I was represented by that point, and like, you know, started my smash and grab raids on UK British comedy scene, hitting everything, doing great. Like 2015 was great, 2017 was great, everything's looking great. 2018 starts, there's no work. I am fast running out of money. And
why is there no work?
It just happens sometimes. Like the right parts don't come along at the right time. Like it's just a fallow period can pop up at any moment in an actor's career. That's one thing in terms of advice that I would always give to people who want to make it in this industry, which is be prepared to starve. Because like times can, because the work is so inconsistent, like it's difficult to build a financial plan around sort of anything like that. It's a struggle. And in this particular case, it was like, right, I have rent to pay. Like, you know, I have a house to maintain. Like, you know, I can't, like, you know, hang on. It's time to go do some work. So I went and got a job as a pizza delivery man, which was supposed to be like a stopgap for maybe 3 months until the next thing came along, but then ended up being a whole year. Oh, wow. And like, you know, again, I'm not complaining because, you know, I know what this industry is. Like, you know, I'm under no illusions that, like, you know, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, all it takes is one missed paycheck and everything goes away. And I certainly learned a lot, because that was realistically, that was my first experience of like actually working. You know, not to say that acting isn't work, but like, you know, this
like
was
like I was about to say an actual job, but that sounds harsh as well.
Well, no, you understand what I mean. Like,
yeah.
That's in
like
lieu of other words,
job.
that's a perfect way to describe it. Like, you know, it's working like gig economy minimum wage, taking every work hour God gives you.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, it was supposed to be like a stopgap for 3 months, but ended up being an entire year.
When you had that phase, or when that phase was coming, was there a point after the sort of, doing extremely well with education, doing, having loads of sort of different roles happening from then until the delivery driving fiasco? The Was there a point when that happened? Did you think, why the hell is this happening to me? I've just done so well. Like, did it boost your ego so much, and then all of a sudden came crumbling down? Or were you always aware of this could end any moment?
For sure, that's the thing. Like, this always can end, and like any actor who gets into this thinking I'm going to be fine forever needs a reality check, and quick. Like, I don't feel like I'm owed a career in this industry. Like, I've no one deserves to belong to the upper echelons of the acting community, but like, I can't deny that it was a confidence hit, especially as like the weeks turned into months, turned into a year, and it was like, I mean, I'm going to be forgotten, like, because everything moves so fast, especially nowadays with like digital and streaming. Like, a show can go up and like be a huge hit and then vanish. Remember Tiger King?
Yeah.
Like, everyone was talking about that for like a week, and now where is it? No one talks about it now. And so like, I was very aware, like in sort of almost in terms of mortality, I guess, I was aware that the shelf life of my acting career was on the way to expiring, because the longer I'm away from screens, the longer the more chance that like, that momentum that I'd started to build had gone. But this would be a very good segue, by the way. This would be a very good segue to start talking about Afterlife.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about Afterlife then. So you had this sort of, I keep on calling it different things, but you were a delivery driver for a year, okay? And now I'm assuming that after the delivery driver job, you got a role on the show Afterlife. Is that right?
Well, it's slightly, the chronology is slightly off. So season 1 of Afterlife was the last job that I did before delivery driving.
Oh, okay.
And that was the one where I was only in 1 episode. And not only was I only in 1 episode, I was only in 1 scene. And that was just sticking recorders up my nose, bish, bash, bosh. It was a couple of hours.
Yeah.
A couple of hours work. And so, I'd done that. And because it was such a small part, I was like, that was great. That was fun. Like, I got to meet Ricky. I got to meet Tony Way. I got to meet Joe Hartley. Like, I got to work on a Netflix show. That's cool. But, that'll be the end of that probably. And it was only around the summer and autumn of 2019 when I was already like, fast approaching getting my gold clock at the pizza delivery.
1 year anniversary.
Where I got the call, and they were like, yeah, not only do we want you to come back, we also have massively increased your part. And I was like, okay. And then like I got sent through the scripts and I started to read them, and I was like, holy shit, I'm like a series regular now. Like, I've gone from a bit part cameo to like
big part,
all 6 eps, which was crazy. And like, I will forever be like, at 2 points in my career, I have to thank Jack Whitehall for setting me up on the path. And in this particular case, I have to thank Ricky for like seeing something in me that made him think this kid can go.
Was that the case? Did he see what you'd done in season 1 and go, I want this guy to be a regular?
I mean, I've never asked, because it almost feels like gauche to ask.
Yeah.
But like, it must be something like that, because
because it's a bit odd.
It's his baby. Do you know what I mean? It's
exactly.
not like he wouldn't have put my part back in it to that degree if he didn't think that I would be able to A, do it, and B, be like a credit to the show. And
yeah, no, like you said, it's a bit odd to all of a sudden have 1 scene, but then now all of a sudden be in 6 episodes as well.
Again, it doesn't happen. Just like my route into the industry, it doesn't happen. Like, it's not supposed to be this way.
Yeah.
But whatever I did, the chemistry I had with Joe, the chemistry I had with Tony, whatever happened was enough for that to go. And like, so all the negotiations happened, and I was looking at it and I was like, I can quit pizza delivery to work on this, and hopefully something else will happen off the back of it, because like, this is season one had been out for a while, and like, you know, it hoovered up all the awards. It was like, you know, breaking records all over the place. And I was like, well, this is my chance. This is my shot. Like, you know, if I'm able to impress in this, great. And then that takes us to the beginning of 2020, when all of these auditions start to come in, and they're all great. I'm doing dubbing work for Netflix. I land a job on Horrible Histories, and I'm like,
whoa.
this is it. We're going. This is fantastic. I checked the dates when I'm on this for an email. I secured the job on Horrible Histories on the 18th of March, 2020.
Oh, wow.
5 days later, everything shut down.
Yeah. I was just about to say, that's literally right at the end. So did you not do it then?
We've just literally finished on it a couple of weeks ago.
Wow. So like a year and a half later.
It was on the shelf for 16 months. And but yeah, we finally got it done, and I'm glad they remembered me. And that sort of ties into 2021, because not only did I do that, but like we had the continuity for Afterlife as well, because I've filmed season 3 this year as well. So yeah, as I say, it's like 2021, despite everything that's going on, like it's been a pretty good year for me. I can't lie.
I mean, yeah, you mentioned how it was sort of busiest time 2021 despite the pandemic. I want to go back a little bit, because you spoke about how you know, all of a sudden you'd been told you're getting these 6 episodes, you're going to be on every episode after having just been on one scene. What was that feeling like, having gone through the, you know, building up a huge CV, having loads of credits, then having the massive, you know, downfall of, you know, or it's only going to be 3 months delivery driving, or 6 months, 9 months, now a year, and then now all of a sudden you're back on working with Ricky Gervais, major role on a Netflix show. What was that feeling like when you were told, when you saw the script and how often you're going to be on, where you're like, holy crap, I'm back, baby?
It pulled me out of a slump, like, you know, because I'm making it sound like it was worse than it was. Like, I enjoyed the work, the pizza delivery. Like, you know, I had fun with it, and like, you know, I learned a lot, and like, you know, I learned what a key performance indicator is. So that's always good. And like, you know, I did enjoy it, but at the same time, at the back of my head, I was like, what if I end up here forever? Like, you know, because that could reasonably happen. Like, I'm gonna have to, I mean, obviously I'll put the work in, and I'll be the best regional manager this company's ever had. But at the back of my head, it was always thinking, but this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, you know, I'm an actor. This is what I want to do. And so when it came through, and it was like, here's your route out, like, here's your golden ticket, much the same way that it was when I landed the Bad Education role. Like, you know, I was looking at it and I was like, this has just been handed to me. It's been handed to me on a platter, and this shouldn't happen. So it was a mixture of sort of incredulity and like overwhelming happiness, where I was thinking to myself, I did something right. Like, you know, I clearly impressed the right people. I did what I needed to do, and here we go. We're away.
I think I don't know if anyone's ever said this to you, but I mean, obviously, I'm sure it's because you're a great actor, but I think it's also because you've got this ability to just talk to people as if you've known them for so long. Like when I started speaking to you on this podcast, I was there like, I feel like I already knew it was going to be a good podcast, or at least for me, I'm going to enjoy this podcast, because I was there like, this guy already seems like he's high energy and just excited and happy. And then even before, like, or when I messaged you on Twitter, you were, I think you messaged me last night and be like, I'm looking forward to it or whatever. And I was there like, we've got like hours left or something like that. Just like joking around. And then the whole thing with Jack Whitehall, how after, you know, 5 minutes working with him, he clearly saw something in you. And then again with Ricky Gervais, he clearly saw something with you. I think you've got an ability to basically you just have good vibes about you, and you make people happy when they're speaking to you. And I think that's one of the reasons why people want to work with you. Again, why Ricky was there, like, you know what, I want this guy. I've got this good feeling about this guy when I talk to him.
I appreciate that. And like, you know, I suppose it ties into what I was saying earlier, that I pride myself on being good in the room. Like, you know, if I'm able to like communicate with someone face to face, or in this case, screen to screen, like, you know, I feel like that's one of my skills. Like I'm good at that. Like, you know, I joke sometimes when I'm like making videos for TikTok and stuff like that, that like I get the question like, what would you do if you weren't an actor? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have any skills outside of skills that would be useful for being an actor.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's all part of the skill kit, I guess. But I know I really appreciate that. That was a really nice thing to say.
No,
I'm
honestly,
blushing.
I do mean it. And as someone who, when you spoke earlier about how when you get that laugh, you feel everyone in the palm of your hand. I'm not a comedian. I'm not an actor, even though I was King Arthur in a Year Six play, main character. I'm gonna
Just
keep
saying.
that in there again.
Talk of
Most
the
lines
town
as well.
still.
Anyway, and I had a big shiny sword. But anyway, that's the point. I know what that feels like because I've done a lot of public speaking in the past, like probably in front of like 100, 200, 250 people maximum. And when you're writing the script for your public speaking, there are points that you know that if they laugh at that point, you're doing something right. Or if they give a certain reaction, right, you're doing something right. And so there's been a few times where I've done it and they've laughed, and I understand that feeling you get when you're like, now this is my read. It's like all of a sudden your hand is open, they all crumble in, and then you just like that, and all of a sudden you've got everything. And so I get that, and so the reason why I said what I said about you having this sort of likable personality and being able to do well in a room is I just want to ask you, what do you think makes you good at being able to work a room, if that makes sense, being able to sort of come across as someone likable and whatever? Like is there something that you sort of try and come across as or do or act in a certain way, or is it just sort of natural, you just let your natural personality come out?
I mean, it's possibly a combination of both. I mean, one of your quickfire questions when we spoke about comedy right at the beginning, I spoke about empathy. And like, I'm not all any of that wooey bullshit like, oh, I'm an empath, but like, it's not hard to take interest in people. And I think a lot of people feel like people don't take interest in them, if that makes sense. And so like, all it takes is just to ask a question and like, actually respond to it without sort of like, what do they call it? Active listening. You just say like, yeah. Actually taking an interest in it. And I think that's, that's an easy way to be personable. But I mean, I suppose to a degree it is a natural instinct. I mean, it's kind of odd because and I think you'll hear this from a lot of actors, there's a strange sort of dichotomy in our hearts, which is that obviously we're all massive attention seekers and like love all eyes on us, but we're also paradoxically really shy. And so like, I'm not that great with strangers. One of the weird things about it is that if I'm in a professional setting, I can like storm in and be like the belle of the ball and like, leave them like Rick Mail in Blackadder Series 2. Like he's only on screen for 3 minutes, but you can't think about anything else. Like, so that's when I go in. But like in a public facing arena, like I remember the first time I got noticed, I was mortified. Like the first time I was recognized for bad education, I was mortified. I went home, I was shaking.
Why?
And like, because I'm not good with strangers. And like I felt off my guard because I hadn't sort of like, built up the psychological armor to be like, right, okay, this is me getting a job, in I go. And like, it does get easier. Like, again, it's all practice. And I suppose there, to a degree, there is a kind of, I don't want to say a falseness, but like, there is sort of like a mask that you put on to feel confident in yourself. And like, when I get recognized now, it's far easier because I can like, I can crack a joke, I can crack wires, and like, it makes it feel like more of like a moment. But I mean, outside of that, I'm still a shy guy, I'm afraid. Still very much a shy guy.
No, I guess that's you, and it makes you who you are. Like at the end of the day, that's what you are. And I think everyone's got that element of where they excel in certain areas and maybe they're a bit more shy in other areas. But if they get used to that situation, then they get better. Like, you with fan interactions.
I like to think of it as phone voice. A lot of people have a phone voice for when they're talking to someone official or anything like that. Mine's just a full scale version of that, I guess. Like, as soon as I sense a fan interaction starting to happen, I'm like, right, phone body, here we go. And it's away. I mean, it's not so much that it's fake because it's still like, it's still me, it's still communicating. I'm not trying to pretend to be something that I'm not. But to the same degree, it's also not the version of me that would react to a stranger coming up to them, which is to get really anxious and nervous and not be able to think about anything else for the next week.
What is that? What's that like? That I know you said the first time was, you know, you were shaking afterwards, but what's it like for someone to be like, oh, you're the guy from Bad Education, you're the guy from Afterlife? What's that? What is it like? Because for a normal person, we don't have a clue.
I mean, it's nice because 99.9999999% of the time, people approach you because they've enjoyed your work, and that's flattering and it's nice. And like, one of the things that I found, I mean, I only joined TikTok recently, but one of the things that I found is that there's still such a huge community of Bad Education fans who are like fascinated by it and like fascinated by the people who are in it. And it is flattering. And like, you know, you sort of, I suppose it's good that I'm kind of shy with it, because I think it would be very easy to like let your head start to inflate with people telling you you're great all the time. But you know, it is nice and it is flattering. And like, you know, by and large these days, I mean, obviously what with everything shutting down and people going out less, like, you know, it hasn't happened as much, and it's been a nice reprieve. But like, you know, even if it's just a small thing, like, you know, someone spots you and they're like, oh, can I have a photo? The whole thing will take 10 seconds at most. And you walk away from it, or at least I walk away from it thinking to myself, that was 10 seconds out of my day, and they'll probably be like in a good mood for the rest of the evening. So I've done a good thing today. I'm karmically balanced.
Yeah, no.
For the week.
Have you had any you said 99.9999999% of the time is a good one. Have you had any sort of bad fan interactions or?
So this is going to make it sound like I was being a dick, and I wasn't, right? Because I think this is fair. So one of the things that I don't like, and this really has only happened once or twice, and it is the ones that I'll refer to here, which is like, if I'm clearly in the middle of something, like eating a dinner or having a conversation or something like that, like, don't barge in. You know what I mean? Don't be like, oh. And there was this one situation where I was eating dinner with a friend. This was this must have been what 2014, 2015. And like, you know, we were talking. I hadn't seen him for a while, and like, you know, we were laughing and joking, and like, we had literal food in front of us. And then someone came up and was like, oh, can I have a photo? And I was like, more than happy to. Would you mind if I finish eating first, and I'll come find you? And he was like, oh, you think you're too good for me? And I was like, oh, here we go. So at this point,
how they get to that conclusion. Let the man eat.
I just disengaged from it at that point. But like I said, that happens so rarely. I mean, that was probably the last time it ever happened, and that was like, what, 7 years ago. So it's fine. I mean, I find that Bad Education, especially the Afterlife fans, tend to be a very gentle and decent folk.
With Bad Education, and particularly with Afterlife, it's like it requires a certain person to watch it, like almost like because it's not a show for everyone, I don't think, but it is a show for the people that do watch it. It's sort of one of the ones where you watch it. Like, I just started it. I've not even finished season 1. So it's almost, I feel like, and based on what I've heard about Afterlife in particular, it is a show where, I don't know how to say this, but in a nice way, but where like the decent people watch it, where they want good comedy and they're decent humans almost. And like, they agree with a lot of what sort of Ricky Gervais often comes out with about, you know, things like freedom of speech or whatever, or about things like listening to one another, and celebrities virtue signaling or whatever. They're that sort of group of people. They're not going to go crazy. They're quite empathetic. I don't know. Maybe I'm just generalizing too much. I probably am. But I do feel like that's the sort of people.
I think it's a fair comment. And especially because the show itself is also largely about grief. Which, again, like, speaking about empathy again, like we're back here talking about this. Like, you know, grief is universal. And I think that's why Afterlife touched so many people in a way. Because, you know, even if you haven't lost someone yourself, you know someone who has. Like, you know, loss is a part of the human experience. It's a devastating part of the human experience, but there's also comedy to be found there. There's also joy to be found there. And like, you know, I think if you walked away from Afterlife like not having felt anything, like I don't know what to say to you. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's something wrong with you, like, because either you laugh or you cry or both. I don't know. I just think it's a very interesting show in that regard, because it's tearing at something which is so personal and hard to deal with, but in a way that feels universal, which I think is lovely, and I think people who enjoy that recognize that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Do you watch? Do you watch it all back before everyone else does, or do you watch it as everyone else watches it?
So generally, when it comes to sort of like things for a screening, they will show one, maybe two episodes at sort of like a hotel or something in London's West End, and then we'll all have a piss up afterwards. So I won't see like the whole series. The closest that I'll get to sort of seeing a lot of it is when we have to do something called ADR, which is automatic dialogue replacement, where essentially if a shot in a scene was like good, but like there was a sound issue, like, you know, maybe a mic scraped or a plane flew overhead, and we just need to get the clean audio, you'll go into a studio and basically dub over yourself.
Oh, okay.
Almost like karaoke, but for lines of dialogue that you said weeks ago. And like, I love doing ADR because like it will be a random collection of scenes, like a line or two here or there, and it's like, oh, I can see the assembly footage. Yeah. I can see how it's coming together. But no, for the most part, like for the whole bulk of the program, for the entire thing, I won't see it until it actually comes out and everyone else is seeing it at the same time.
Oh, okay. No, I was just wondering. I just wondered how it sort of goes, because obviously when it comes to movies, you get those sort of premieres where you can watch it, but with this TV series, you can't watch it all in one go. It'll take you hours upon hours. So
yeah,
I was just wondering how it would sort of work. Would you sort of get given a tape where you can watch it or whatever? So yeah, no, that it was just a random question that I thought of.
No, it's a good one. And in terms of sort of like movies, like, you know, the premiere is also generally the time where it's usually very close to the date of release anyway. And so, like, you know, especially, I mean, you know, I'm no expert on it. I've only done 3 films, but like, you know, it's the premiere is sort of not only it's not only a chance for like the cast to see how the whole thing came together, but also there will be like civilians in there who have never seen it before either.
Civilians.
Yeah. I don't know why I said
not
that.
Members of the public.
I was trying to members of the public was what I was trying to say. That was what I was thinking of. That was what was at the back of my head. I didn't get there in time. My tongue went too fast and I said civilians, which makes me sound like an elitist piece of shit.
Just civilians, the common folk,
the fucking normies coming in the cinema.
We've got to sit next. We've got to share the same air as them.
Oh my god! No, we were in the box, darling.
Oh, right, you were in the box. We don't share the same air.
Behind a curtain.
We've got to look at their faces when they come. Just when you came out with civilians, I was like, that is not the right word.
No, and I'm fully aware of it, and you should absolutely keep this in and show me up.
No, I am there. Everything's going to stay.
We're not cutting a single thing.
I'm not cutting anything. This is
even the tech issues.
But yeah, everything stays in. Honestly, I am an amateur editor. Yeah, do you know how long it would take me to edit out all those tech issues and make them a smooth transition? It was just better just to leave them, and it just works like that. Honestly, I tried doing it. I tried cutting it, and it came out so badly. I was just like, this is awful. I'm just going to keep it in, and it works so much better if you just keep it in.
Makes it feel more alive.
Yeah.
Honestly, makes it feel live.
If you heard Ethan say civilians, then comment down below civilians, right? Just comment the word civilian, because I just want to know how many people got to this point. Because that was brilliant.
Civilians.
I don't know why.
Hashtag cancel Lawrence.
Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, so I want to ask you just a few more questions. Netflix. So obviously, Afterlife is a Netflix show. And Netflix is kind of a new thing, I guess. What is there a sort of difference between the way they do their shows? Because more and more I'm seeing more and more amazing shows that Netflix is coming out with. And I was speaking with my with that Netflix exclusive shows. I was speaking to one of my cousins, and I was speaking about how Netflix are coming out with some amazing shows. Eventually, everything on Netflix is going to be Netflix stuff, because of how good this stuff is. Do they do things differently, or is it pretty much the same? It's just, I guess, owned by a different company. What's that like? And do you think that it will get to a point where essentially everything on Netflix is going to be Netflix owned because they're so good at it?
So I didn't notice anything on a moment-to-moment basis. Like, you know, making a sitcom is like it's not that it's formulaic, but there is a formula. Like there's a way of doing things, and like Ricky has shot his shows pretty much the same way since all the way back in like Extras days. So he knows what he's doing, and it's more of a Ricky show than it is a Netflix show, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it felt like making a sitcom, which is something that I'm very used to. I can't speak to sort of like the larger productions like your Bridgertons or anything like that, because they won't let me anywhere near those. They're like, no, stay in your lane. But for the second half of your question, I would imagine so. I mean, we're now looking at a situation where like streaming services are, it's not so much that they're going to be replacing terrestrial TV, but like, for a global audience, that's going to be the vast bulk of how people interact with art now. And with the rise of Amazon, with the rise of Amazon Prime, but especially the rise of Disney Plus, I think it behooves Netflix to start producing their own content, which they have done, like, at a great pace as well. Obviously, losing the 9 months to the pandemic didn't help, but then like they're in overdrive at the minute, as far as I'm aware, in terms of sort of like in terms of projects, because not that Netflix ever had like a monopoly over streaming, but they were sort of like the first ones that were there. Then Amazon came along, then Hulu and everything like that. But because it's not a one horse race now, like I think all of them, Amazon, Disney, Netflix, they're all going to be working as hard as they can to keep as much fresh content coming through.
Yeah, no,
and
100%.
There's only so much you can do with buying up old properties.
I think that's the thing. Yeah, I think having more than one definitely helps, and it has almost made Netflix go, you know what, we need to start making more things and better things. And that's what you're getting now. There's so many TV shows out now, and it's just like I've got a list of shows that I want to watch, because and I don't like watching more than one at once. I like watching one at a time. Fair. So it's like, because then I just don't like it. So it just takes me ages to get to. Even BBC iPlayer, I've got some solid TV shows as well. So it's like you've got all these shows that are incredible, and it's great to see. I want to ask you just a few more sort of questions that other people have sort of asked. One of the ones, what's the best and worst part in working in entertainment?
So the best part is, for me, I mean, this sounds like so trite, almost like a kind of cop-out answer, but genuinely, the best thing about working in entertainment is that the thing that I love the most and the thing that I'm the best at, I get paid for. Like, so few people in this world can genuinely say that like their art and their love is also their job. And I'm immensely grateful for that, and always will be. So that's probably the best thing. The worst thing, I mean, we spoke about it in terms of the wilderness years. The worst thing is that it's not a consistent thing. And like, I do get tired sometimes of worrying about like, when the next job's going to come and where the next paycheck's coming from. It's probably not great for the mental health that, like, every audition I'm like clawing at it and thinking to myself, this has to be the one, because rent are going out in a few weeks and I've got to get there. So yeah, that's probably my least favorite part of working in the entertainment industry, is the fact that it is an unforgiving bitch, the entertainment industry.
I bet it is, yeah.
But I mean, things I think are changing in a lot of ways in the entertainment industry. Like there was a recent thing that came out from Equity, the actors union, where some guidelines have been put in place for the production of self-tapes, because there's been a number of times where you'll get sent through an email saying, oh, can you do this self-tape? And you'll have like 24 hours to do it. And like, that sounds like a long time, but in those 24 hours, like you might get it at 5 o'clock in the evening. And then you've got to learn all the dialogue, set up the camera, film it, edit it, send it off, and all within 24 hours, during which time, presumably at some point, you've got to sleep. And so for the longest time, like, especially as the pandemic really started to hit, like a lot of actors were like, this is untenable. You can't be expecting us to learn 3 pages worth of script and then have like a perfect casting coming out. But Equity have put guidelines in place now that like there is like an agreed upon amount of time that a self-tape can be sent out for, and like, covered for weekends and covered for bank holidays, which is, it's small steps, just to making the industry a less stressful place, I think.
Well, it does seem like that. Well, that is one of the other questions that people ask. Is it seems like very much as good as it does sometimes seem on the outside. It also, especially based on what people have heard, the acting industry does seem like it's a very stressful time. You know, you mentioned earlier about how you don't know when you're getting your next paycheck at points. But just in general, it seems quite ruthless. Like,
Oh, it absolutely is. Like, you know,
yeah.
Because, you know, I phrase it sometimes as saying that I've had more job interviews than a lot of people have had hot dinners. Like, if you view each individual audition as essentially a job interview, like, you know, obviously you've applied for jobs in your life, and you know that, like, you know, they're drawing from a wide pool that will eventually get narrowed down. But like with acting, it's that all the time. Like every single thing you go up for, you're thinking to yourself, right, this email must have gone to 100, 200 other actors. And after the next round, it would be down to 50. And after the next round, it would be down to 10, all the way down to 1. And that's all the time. So, like, you know, it is ruthless in the sense that it is absolutely dog eat dog. And, like, you know, as much as you think to yourself, well, it would be lovely to give people a boost and, like, you know, really get into the industry, I'm also thinking to myself, yeah, but I've got to pay my rent. So,
don't get into the industry. Do not get into the industry.
My advice is no one should be an actor except for me.
So none of you civilians out there, do not try and become like one of them.
Stop it.
Yeah? None of you.
I'm already ashamed. Stop.
It's the best word. It is honestly the best. It's like one of the best things that's happened on this podcast, which it was just, I don't even know. I don't know why I found it so funny. It's the fact that you use that word. Yeah, so civilians, don't try and become an actor.
Oh my God. I sound like such a bastard.
Oh man. Because it contradicts everything that you're like. As in, like, this whole time you come across as like this, you know, down to earth kind of guy, you know, humble and whatever. And then when you came out as civilian, it just was that, like, this guy's been acting the whole time.
I'm so ashamed of myself.
It was brilliant. What else have I got here? I've got a few others. What's it like? What was it like working with Ricky Gervais the first time, and then when you became a regular as well?
So it was. You hear rumors about how Ricky likes to run his set, which is generally a standard working day for a TV shoot. Is the shooting hours are between 8 o'clock and in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening. So it would generally be 11-hour day, and on either side of that, you've got costume, makeup, all the technical guys like camera guys, grips, all that. They've all got work, and like there'll be call times at maybe around 6, and then after 7, obviously everything needs to be packed up. So you're looking at sometimes like 12, 13, 14-hour days. Ricky doesn't like to work beyond 4, and I'd heard that as a rumor, and it turns out it's absolutely completely true. I have never known a director to work as fast as Ricky does. And I think it's helpful because he not only, like, you know, stars in, but also writes and directs. So, like, he knows what he wants going into it. So, like, there's no wasted time, like, you know, working out what setups they want. He knows exactly what he wants, and that happens, and we all get to go home early and, like, see our families and things like that, which is a wild thing in the acting industry. I mean, for the first, but to answer your more concrete point, the first time that I went in, I cannot stress this enough, I was there for like an hour. Like, it was not a long experience. And you know, there's obviously like nerves coming into something, especially with someone of Ricky's stature, where you're sort of like, okay, well, I've got to do good because, like, you know, he's the governor. So, you know, I did what I could, like, you know, always do your best. That's all you can do. And, like, you know, so I went in, went out, everyone seemed really nice, and I was like, well, that was a good day. And then when it came to series 2 and, like, everything, like, ramped up in a big way, that's when I learned sort of like the, you know, how a working day with Ricky Gervais actually genuinely sort of feels like. And, like, the speed is great and exhilarating, but also kind of tough because, like, you know that, like, you've got a certain number of takes to get this. And, like, generally what will happen is, like, we'll do it as written once, so he's got it clean and in the bag, and then the rest of the time is playtime. So like we'll start improvising, start throwing stuff around, just like, you know, as have as much fun as we have. Like that was how the cake scene, the infamous cake scene, developed, because that was basically an ad lib that got out of control. So it's a really fun set to work on, and it was again when we were doing series 3. Like obviously everything was a bit different because we were working under COVID protocol, so it wasn't as free as it was before. But like, you know, Netflix worked really, really hard to make sure that the set was as safe as possible. And like, you know, so we still had the opportunity to like, you know, play around and have fun while still keeping it safe, like regular testing, masks everywhere. Like, you know, it was safe. And with any luck, like we'll still get the same result that we had for series 2. Like you won't notice the difference, which would be nice.
Yeah, no, but that's mental. That, you know, I'm still blown away by when you said 4 hours. So how does it work then? Like you said, normally, you know, you start at 8, finish at 7. It's 12, 13 hours or whatever, 11, 12 hours, sorry, or 13 hours even. So how does it work with working with Ricky? Does it just start at 8 and finish at 12?
Oh, sorry. He doesn't work for 4 hours. He doesn't like to work beyond 4 p.m.
Yeah. Oh, he's doing. Oh, right.
Sorry,
okay,
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna say, I was kind of like, what? He only works 4 hours and he does all that.
No, I should have clarified that better. So instead of being from 8 until 7, it'll be from 8 until 4.
Ah, okay. So everything is extremely quick then. Everything's getting done.
Yeah.
How? Because I understand he can control that himself. So he could be like, I need to make sure that I'm the best actor in every single scene and make sure that I am the best I could be. How does he get everyone else to be like, right, we're working till 4. You need to smash it out first time.
One of Ricky's low-key talents, and like, you know, this is going to sound like I'm bigging myself up, but I'm talking about the whole swathe of his career here. One of Ricky's hidden talents is how good he is as a casting director. Like he hires people that he knows he can get the best performances out of. And like, you know, again, that sounds like I'm, you know, really bigging myself up because I went from one scene to series regular. But like, you know, that's how he works. Like he knows that he will only hire people that he knows can get it really quick, really fast, and can bring to the role what they represent. Like, you know, for all sort of like the kind of like impossible solving of issues in terms of casting, the real answer to casting is you cast people who physically and mentally and emotionally represent what you're going for. Which is why it can be so tough in this industry, because like, you know, it doesn't matter how skilled you are. Sometimes someone just has the nature better. And as I say, Ricky's low-key talent is being able to recognize that in his performers. So there's never going to be a situation where he has to like over direct us or anything like that. We bring to it exactly what he needs.
Ooh, I mean, I'm glad you clarified that he doesn't work just 4 hours. That makes a lot more sense.
That wouldn't happen. We'd never get it done.
Yeah, I was gonna say you'd never got it done. But it is mental. It's like, I mean, for me, it's mental because, you know, Ricky Gervais is this sort of, you know, ultra celebrity almost. He's huge, and so like the chance of working with him. I know you worked with Jack Whitehall, who's also massive as well. But to work with someone like Gervais, I don't know why, but Gervais always comes across as, he seems like a different than to other celebrities almost. Like he seems like, I don't know what it is. He seems like that. Do you often have interactions with him? Is he like, oh, Ethan, how was your weekend? Or is it just like you go in and it's brutal? You essentially just smash it out until 4, and then basically at 4 it's home time.
Now he runs a loose set. Like, you know, I think because especially when you're making comedy and like especially something as improv heavy as Afterlife, it has to be a loose set because otherwise it sort of, you know, it would be too repressive to like, you know, actually get a good performance out of people. So like, you know, we'll chat while cameras are moving on, like a lighting setup needs to be done. Like, you know, not just about the show. Like obviously we'll discuss ideas and like, you know, lines that we might want to try, but like, you know, we talk about all sorts of stuff as well. It genuinely really is a lovely set to work on. And you know, it's even during under COVID protocols, like, you know, it still had the same atmosphere that series 2 had, which is just really nice. It's a nice, it's a place where you feel like you're free to play, which like, you know, not to sort of like, you know, say that that's the way of doing things. Like it isn't. Like, you know, other jobs will require sort of like much more tighter and firmer discipline, which is fine because it gets it all done. But it's you're reaching for different effects. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you know, working in a Morrison's where you work would be different in another town, for example. Like it's different clientele, it's a different, like even the size of the store can change everything.
No, 100%, and it does, because I've worked at 2 Morrison stores, and it definitely does.
You'll know then. You'll know
exactly. I want to quickly touch on one thing, and then I've got a final question to you. You've mentioned how a lot of the things that you do on Afterlife is often improv. Has there ever been a point where you were just like, someone did something, and you were just like, I don't know how to react? And what's your thinking behind when you're doing improv as well?
Well, I have a grounding in improv. When I was at university, I was not only a large part, but also became president of the improv society that we run.
Oh, okay.
So I have a grounding in improvisation, and even going back to the days when I was training with Gary, like improv was a big part of it. So I feel comfortable improvising. You know, it's really all just about, like, you know, allowing a scene to build, like, you know, instead of like blocking stuff or things like that, just allowing the scene to build, and, like, you know, responding to what everyone else is doing, almost like just a normal conversation, except you're playing a part. The only really difficult stuff is when you're improvising and one of your fellow actors hits on something that is so funny. There's no way you're going to make it through the rest of the scene. It's just not going to happen. Again, I draw your attention to the outtakes for the cake scene, where me and Mr. David Earl were just choking on cake and trying to get something usable out of those shots, but it was just too much. It was just too much, and Ricky wasn't helping, laughing in the background. Like, it is a miracle that we got through that.
No, I mean, it seems, just in general, the whole podcast as well, it seems like, I mean, you smashed it. You know, you didn't go through drama school. You went through a very unorthodox route. You had your ups following bad education, and then you had, you know, a massive down. I know you said you enjoyed the job, but for a year you didn't know what you were kind of, you know, what was.
It wasn't
happening.
where I wanted to be.
Yeah, you weren't where you wanted to be, essentially. And then, you know, you got an opportunity to go back onto Afterlife and be a regular. And there's a lot of people who love you. I mean, you've got 60,000 people on TikTok, a huge bad education following on there.
We're very close to hitting 69,000, which is
mental.
Nice.
Yeah,
well.
I mean, I'm sure you'd love that. I'm sure you'd love that. Although once the civilians clip comes out,
right? Okay.
So I wouldn't say. Well, I mean, I have got one final.
Sorry,
I die every time I mention it. I got one final question to you, if you can actually answer it without laughing.
Is it about civilians?
It is about civilians. So it's about the 20-year-old civilians right now, right? The 20-year-old civilians who don't know what they're doing with their life, who are in this sort of weird phase of being in a pandemic, and they got all this pressure of needing to know what to do, and they're just seeking out advice, because that's why I started this podcast, because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to meet people. University, I couldn't meet people because of COVID, so I decided to start a podcast. But so people like me who don't know what they're doing, what advice would you give to 20, 21, 22-year-olds out there right now?
Don't set a time limit on yourself. Like, society, and especially sort of like the early years, like, seems to push a lot of people to, like, make lifelong decisions when they're barely adults, sometimes when they're not even adults. And, like, you know, I think I learned this largely from sort of like how unreliable my work can be, which is that there's no time limit on being able to do stuff that you want to do. Like, you know, if you don't know what you want to do by the time you're 20, that's fine. Like, you've still got plenty of time. You've still got plenty of life to live. And, like, you know, now that we're sort of coming out of this era of the pandemic, and, like, we're able to do things that we weren't able to do before, put yourself in situations where you can try something. Like, you know, it's sort of the opposite of what I did. Like, I knew what I wanted to do from an early age, and that's rare, but, like, you know, I made it work. But, like, you know, go try stuff, like take up a craft, learn a hobby, like, you know, take the time, because you have more time than you think you do. Society is desperate to make you think that you've got, like you are on a timer, and, like, the sand is running out as fast as you possibly can. But I mean, I did a video about this on TikTok not so long ago, which I think is quite opposite and worth bearing in mind, which is that Jason Statham didn't get his first film role until he was 31. Harrison Ford was 38 when he was in Star Wars. and Alan Rickman didn't get his first feature film role until he was well into his 40s. So there is no time limit. Like, whatever you want to do, there's time, and don't write yourself off when you're young, when you're 20. Like, you've still got so much still to go. Life is long, live it.
That's perfect. That's usually my final question, but I actually have got a quick one because I forgot to answer this, and this was meant to be one of the first ones. You actually, and that just shows how unorganized I am. The way I sort of realized, the way we got to the point where we chatted about you coming on the podcast was you tweeted out saying that you wanted to be on podcasts. You just like, you know what, you don't get if you don't ask. I want to be on podcasts. If anyone wants me, send me a message or whatever. Why do you want to be on podcasts?
I've loved podcasts for a long time. I discovered them around the early point of 2016, and like it's now a significant portion of my day is listening to podcasts. And like, how best to put this? I wanted to parlay some of the goodwill that I've garnered from, like, you know, being on telly and stuff and like making people laugh. I wanted to parlay that into having the skill of being good on podcasts without actually putting in the work of making a podcast myself. So I set a trap and I let everyone come to me. And you bit, Tarek. I'm sorry.
I was just about to say you caught me. You caught me and a few others as well. But I mean,
you're not going to edit this. This is going to go out unedited. So
yeah, no, this exactly. See, everyone
can we really describe this last hour and a half as work? Really?
I mean, I don't get paid for it, so I don't think I can. But I mean, what we have got is we've got you calling people civilians, telling people that they can only get interacting if they go through the way that you've gone, and now that you have openly tricked every single podcast that you've been on, just so that you can be on podcasts without actually having to make a podcast. So if that doesn't get you cancelled, I don't know what will. Hashtag cancel Ethan Lawrence is about to begin.
You know what? I think this was a good first podcast of the post me asking to be on podcast era. I think if that's the layup, then wow, what a slam dunk this is going to be.
I hope so. But I mean, I finished. Like I said, this is the part that will get edited out, as in this final bit, because I put the intro, I put the outro in late afterwards, because I end up writing an outro up as to what I want to make sure that I mention. But it's been an absolute pleasure, Ethan. I can't remember the last time I've laughed so much in a podcast. I had a feeling it would be funny just because it's you, and it was. It was absolutely hilarious. And like I've
really enjoyed this. Thank you so much. It has been a really, really good time. I've enjoyed it a great deal.
Honestly, it's my absolute pleasure. Like I said at the beginning, you have this thing about you, and immediately I got it within the first 2-3 minutes where you can just tell that you're likable, you're relatable, that you listen. I mean, the fact that you mentioned Morrison's after like an hour after I mentioned it just made me think this guy definitely did listen.
Just taking interest in people. It's not hard.
No, 100%. And I relate to that because that's, again, another reason why I started the podcast is because I'm so interested in the everyday person. I just want to learn about them. One of the annoying things about COVID is that we no longer get to sit next to people on the bus, on the train. I used to have the best conversations with people on the bus and the train. I like just amazing ones. I remember once I met a guy who was like 60 odd years old. We were just sitting on the bus getting home from Manchester, and he was telling me about how he bought one of the buildings on Deansgate and how it's worth this much now, and he sold it ages ago because they wanted shops and whatever, some crazy stories. And I found it fascinating, and I just thought, you know what, I want to start a podcast where I just chat with people, and then tell myself that I've been productive at the end of the day.
Well, for my part, you were a fantastic interviewer.
Thank you.
Like you got me in all the right ways, asked great questions. This was a really easy interview, and that's testament to your skill as an interviewer.
Like, honestly, I really do appreciate that, Ethan. Normally, I message the guests at the end asking them if they've got any sort of feedback or any sort of, because I'd be as harsh as possible. If you've got sort of anything that you'd suggest that I improve on, as someone that works in entertainment, if you've got anything that I should improve on, then please do let me know, because I just want you to be as harsh as possible.
Just get your questions in the right order.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, that was a joke. I've no notes because it felt natural. It felt nice. Yeah, I I don't really have any notes. I've really genuinely enjoyed the last 90 minutes I've spent with you.
Brilliant. Honestly, that makes my day, mate. Genuinely does. This will be out on Sunday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So basically, my plan, because I realized that you're going to be on a load of podcasts, I thought I need to get it out as soon. Normally, I basically, because I have a huge backlog of podcasts, and I normally basically do them all on order. So even though my questions aren't in order, my podcasts are. But when but because
I'm sorry.
everyone else is going to get you on, I was like, you know what, I need to get there as soon as possible. So I'm going to upload it on Sunday. I'm literally going to record the intro and outro right now, edit it as soon as possible, and get it scheduled for Sunday. So on Sunday it will be out. I'll message you on. Is Twitter the best way to message you, on DM?
Yeah. That's best way to get me.
So I'll DM
either that or email. You've got my email as well.
Yeah. I'll DM you on Twitter and email you, and just giving you the links. And obviously, if you can share them as well, then
I'll fire it out
I'd massively appreciate it. And next time you meet Ricky Gervais, if you tell him, by the way, there's a guy called Tarek, he's got a good podcast, you should come on, then thank you. But yeah, other than that, mate, honestly, absolutely appreciate it coming on. It's been one of the best ones that I've recorded, if not the best one. And thank you so much.
Thank you, dude. I've had a great time.
Take care, mate. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
See you later.
And that is it for this week's episode of the Me, Myself, and Hopefully You podcast. I do hope you enjoyed it. Like I said in the beginning, I found it absolutely hilarious throughout. I do apologise for laughing so much and for the technical difficulties. Make sure we all cancel Ethan Lawrence for all the comments he made. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, then please do feel free to leave a like. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss next week's episode. And share us on Instagram, tagging at MMHY podcast. Other than that, thank you so much for watching. Have a great week. Until next time.